we're helping other people get passive income. But, this takes a lot of work. Even as we hand off some of the tasks that we've kind of figured out, repetitive tasks, what needs to happen, we still have to manage it. You still have to make sure those people are doing it. We're not doing the leases. We have to manage the property managers. And so there's quite a bit of work that continues even after you've acquired the place. So.
All right, for today's matchup, we're super excited to have two burgeoning champions of the syndication investing world. These gents are both specializing in and thriving in areas on the active side of general partnerships and commercial real estate investing. In this episode, we'll uncover what it takes to get started taking an active role in partnerships and what kind of ROI you can make leveraging your sweat equity. So let's get to it. Fighting out of Fort Collins, Colorado, where he lives with his wife and some of their 9 children. That's right, 9 children. This contestant has been a successful entrepreneur for the last 25 years. His business ventures have ranged from the technical fields like networking in the internet to various forms of real estate investing. Having worked with real estate models like single-family homes and student housing, he currently focuses on larger multifamily housing and has amassed over 1,700 rental units under his management. Please welcome to the arena, George, 8 is not enough, Cline.
I like that. It's a great title.
That's awesome.
That's good.
All right. And coming to us out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, just a stone's throw from the birthplace of legendary Rocky Balboa, by the way.
Uh-oh.
Where he lives with his wife and 3 children. This Fight Club contender started out as an entrepreneur from the early age of 21. He served as a full-time minister and led humanitarian efforts in over 20 countries. After achieving financial freedom and retiring in his early 30s, he found renewed purpose in creating a community for investment education and outstanding real estate investment opportunities. He hosts the Elevate Investing Group, where he teaches about financial freedom and mentors others in syndicating real estate acquisitions. Currently a general partner in over 2,000 rental units across 18 syndications, he's raised over $33 million in capital to fund those deals. Please welcome to the Cash Flow Fight Club arena, Michael, the Minister of Infinite Returns, Manthei.
Very nice. Very nice. Happy to be here. Yep. Thanks for
Welcome,
having me.
guys.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I like
welcome.
your nicknames, guys. That's good stuff you've come up with. That's good.
That is.
We like to have a little fun and creative outlet. So it's good stuff. All right. So honored to have you both on today to represent syndications, multifamily, but not only.
Sure.
So as a quick reminder, we'll have 3 rounds. This first round's all about really getting to know you guys and what brought you here. Round 2, we'll dig into the business models on each aspect of the syndication. And then round 3 is a final flurry. We're going to get into the pitches for why your particular niche deserves the title of champion.
Michael, please kick us off in round 1. Tell us a little bit about your life previous, what you're doing right now, and what led you to this type of business that you are currently in.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So my background, I started my first company at 2021, had that construction company for a few years, but I had grown up in church and kind of got this feeling, nobody ever said it, but I got this feeling from growing up in the churches that I went to, and pretty typical of churches as I hear other people's experience, that they kind of set ministry on a pedestal as far as like now you were living a noble life if you went to Africa and went to Asia. Anybody doing those things would be brought up on stage and everybody would cheer, give them their money. And the business people never had that. So this subconscious thought that, boy, if I'm in business, it's almost a lower quality life in God's eyes, kind of always nagged at me. And so after a few years in business, I sold that company and entered full-time ministry for about 7 years, traveled to 20 some countries, wouldn't trade it for the world. But through that, kind of finally got healed of that wrong mindset. And God just showed me, hey, the most noble thing anyone can do is be who I created them to be. And he didn't create us all to be the Apostle Paul, like I was trying to be. So that just freed me to really explore who he'd created me to be. And so he started talking to me about finance and business. And so when he was saying finance, I was assuming banking, because that's just what I've always assumed, finance. So I went back to school, almost got a finance degree. I never finished, because what ended up happening was I was in New Zealand, was my last overseas mission trip. Moved back to the States, came to Pennsylvania to get to know my wife, and we got married, and we started buying rental properties. So I thought I was going to buy, I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's really the book that changed my whole world. And his goal in that book was I'll buy 2 properties a year, and at the end of 10 years, I'll have 20 properties. So that was our goal. First year, we bought 2 properties. But then we bought a multi-unit. It was a 10-unit building. And the reason we bought that was because my wife got pregnant. So I wanted to replace her part-time income. So we buy this 10-unit building, and there's more to the story, but through it, I discovered infinite returns. And basically the concept that I didn't have to be limited by my ability to save money and buy another property, save money, buy another property. There was creative things that you could do in real estate. So we ended up buying 50 some properties in the next 2 years. And
Wow.
for us, that was enough to retire. So I'm 33, leave my job. I'm like, it's going to be kicking back and maybe some travel, maybe more ministry time. That lasted about a week. And I got completely bored. And not only that, I felt like the Lord was displeased with this concept that I'm going to take the rest of my life off. Like, that's not why I put you here, to do nothing for the rest of your life, buddy. So it was much more profound than I expected. I didn't realize how profound that time would be, where it was like, I don't have to go to work to make sure my family survives. Like, this is crazy. But anyway, my wife and I, a lot of time thinking, praying, talking with each other, and decided I actually love what I'm doing, but it would be a lot more fulfilling to be a part of other people's journey while we do it, help them, build a community. And so that's what we've done the last 7 years, is changed our model from her and I owning everything to the syndication model. And we invite friends and family, people that we know, to invest with us, which has been just an incredible blessing and so much fun. And then also we've created an investment community, the Elevate Investing group, and we do events and mentoring. And it's just so much more fulfilling to do it with other people. When you get a text or an email, and I'm sure you guys get them with the podcast, this helped change my life. I've achieved things I never thought possible because of your influence, and, thank you. That means a lot more than just buying another building. Well, at the same time, I do want to buy another building. You know what I mean? You want to keep making money because that's fun too, but changing lives is even more special. So
that really is. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. What a great journey. That's it is really special. I mean, I think a lot of us share that. I talk to so many people in the real estate community nowadays, but in ways that we can all give back. It seems to be a driving force for so many people. So,
yeah.
George, the floor is yours now.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to be where you are today.
Yeah, I never have been one for a job. So I've been, since a young guy, always just working for myself. Started a couple different businesses. Ended up, I did real estate when I was really young. Did some student housing. Back, that was the early 90s, like 91. And it was, no money down was the big, every guru was selling that. And I just was too dumb to know that that shouldn't work. And we went and did quite a few properties that way, which was great. Did them with my dad, partnered with him. My dad was a pastor, and which comes into play a little bit later. So anyway, I got into when tech blew up, I got out of real estate, and my life has been working with companies like Apple and Adobe and such, probably for the last, I guess it's coming up on 30 years. And focusing more on the internet and setting up network for them at the trade shows and events. And so that's what I've been focusing on. And something happened. Gosh, I guess it's been about 6 years ago now. My dad, I just gotten off the road. My dad still traveling around all these countries, kind of as a liaison between the missionaries out on the field and then the churches here in the States. Our schedules very rarely lined up. And I just had an inkling one morning. I was like, I'm going to fly home a day early, which I never did. And on the way home, I just thought I should give my dad a buzz. And I called him. I said, hey, any chance you're in town? He was like, yeah, I'm here. Just got in. Your mom's gone. It's just me at the house. And I'm like, well, we'll come over for dinner. He came over for dinner, enjoyed that time hanging out with him. He went home. And then I'd say about an hour later, I got a call from him. And he says, I don't feel good. My arm is hurting. My chest is hurting. Can you come over? So my wife got on the phone with the hospital, prepped them. I went and picked my dad up. My dad has had diabetes since he was 40. And so I thought, well, maybe, his sugar's low. And that was a factor too. But I was driving like a bat out of hell to get him to the hospital. And we got him there, and he died on the table. They brought him back, but it was very scary. Just watching the last words come out of his mouth and stiffen up, and then just, wow. That was rough. But thank goodness, modern emergency medicine, 5-way bypass, they got him back healthy. They said he was 85% blocked in his arteries. It's like, you got a new lease on life.
Wow.
I think he was 75 at the time. So he's been running around the world ever since. But when he got healed from the surgery, I sat at the table with him, my oldest son, who would have been about 25 at the time, and my oldest nephew. And we just kind of had a come to Jesus moment with him. And we're like, Dad, what if you had died? He'd been a pastor forever, and of a fairly small church, around 200 and some people, and no real retirement of anything, of any size. And so we were like, what are you going to do? Because in some sense it's worse, because now you're both alive. How is your money going to last this long? So it was funny as we're just sitting there. And I just was like, we got to find the little amount of money you have for your retirement. How can we multiply that safely and quickly? And it popped into my head about real estate, which I had done, like I said, when I was younger. And as I'm sitting there, my mom bursts into the meeting. Hi, boys. You know how moms are. Guess what just happened across the street? And I was like, Mom, we're trying to have a serious meeting here. And she said, I was just talking to they live in this incredible neighborhood where no house has ever come up for sale. It's a very coveted area. She goes, the lady across the street said her daughter lives next to her and wanted to know if we wanted to buy their house. Right as we were talking about real estate. And I'm like, we walked over there, did the tour, asked her how much she wanted for it. We went back, talked about it, brought a contract over that afternoon.
Wow.
And so that was kind of my steps back into real estate. It was good. It's done well. Being in Colorado, it did well for my dad. And from there, I just realized, okay, this is going to be a hard business model to replicate.
And you bought that for a rental property?
Right. Just wait till Mom starts talking to people. I don't know how that was going to work. So we started looking at other single family homes. It was hard to do any sort of cash flow without doing something like student housing up in Northern Colorado. We developed a small team up in Ohio. We did carried some notes on some, bought a few, I think a triplex was the largest we got. And I was like, this is a lot of work. My dad doesn't have time to be a property manager, and I don't either. So I started looking at how can we scale this more. And it's like, okay, I'll do a 20 unit. And then I'm just working through all this. And eventually it's like, I just got to go big. If I'm going to have to change everything, we'll go big. And so it was at the beginning of 2020, I made the commitment that I was going to get into multifamily syndication on the side, which is how most people sell it. I was going to get on the acquisition side because I like spreadsheets, and that's all it takes, by the way. Just if you fill out a spreadsheet, you definitely do acquisitions. And so I was going to do that in 2020, and it wasn't 10 days later, everything shut down.
Mm.
And so, especially events. So the business I'd been working on for 25 years at that point was gone overnight. And It's like, well, I guess I'm doing this full time. And it's like, well, I better learn it. And so I'd say my first year, first 10, 11 months was a little slow. Was trying to learn and trying to meet lots of people like you guys, Mike and Ligia, and figure out what to do. And I did not join. I finally became a co-GP on somebody else's deal and helped raise capital. I would say my group of friends, I would not say were real high net worth. And so I raised what I needed to on that deal, but I was done. That was it. At the same time, I met somebody who is now my current business partner, and everything I'd heard about doing this sort of business was mindset. And being kind of an engineer, I'm kind of like, well, that's baloney. Tell me how. I don't really need anything else. Well, this partner, his name's Andrew Moore, was really a godsend. He and I both have a lot of similar values, beliefs, our faith. And as we spent a lot of time driving around between properties, we got a chance to know each other. And we realized that we shared a lot of these same things. And, we grew in trust. And he really challenged me a lot with my mental state. He's still working on it. My wife's very glad that I've met him. But after I got done with my first race, he was like, well, which one are you doing next? I'm like, no, that's all the money that anybody I know has. So we're done. And he encouraged me, and I ended up raising on 3 other deals, raising, 4 times what I thought I was going to be able to do. Wow. Those were all within, I think, 2 months. And so I've had to dip my toe into capital raising and really enjoyed it. And then I'd say about a month or 2 after that, we got our first place under contract. Closed in September of it was funny, it's September 24th of 2021. And then we kept getting places, and we closed on our 6th property, our 4th deal on September 23rd, 2022. So although I'm in about 1,800 units, about 810 are under our direct management, asset management. And so that was a whirlwind year. And as you know, if you know, summer of 2022 is when everything went wrong in the equity markets and such. Lending got difficult. Interest rates started going up at an unseen pace. Leverage was off, and we had gotten so many deals so quickly. We had seen a lot of people do that, and it's like they were chasing deals just to kind of get the initial acquisition. And we're like, this. As you guys mentioned, I have a lot of kids, so most of my metaphors kind of come from that. But I look at multifamily properties as like having kids. All the gurus that are out there selling this stuff, they teach you how to get a deal. They teach you how to get pregnant. And I have some friends who, when they were younger, we were all having kids, and they just couldn't get pregnant. And they tried everything, and they finally said, you know what, we're going to give up and just adopt. And it wasn't, I'm sure you've heard stories like this. It wasn't weeks later they got pregnant. Yeah. And it's like, and then since then they've had other kids. It's like, once you figure out not what to do, we're not talking about that, but something happens. It's like, you can have, in some sense, getting the property is the most fun and the easiest part. It doesn't take near the time, but that's what everybody teaches. But the other part was the being pregnant. And this is the heartache part, because it's, I say from the time you get it you get it locked down to the time you close. It's just like meeting with your doctor. They're like, oh, yeah, I see you're pregnant. Everything looks fine. You're probably both going to die before the baby comes. And that's what closing on a deal is like. It's just very stressful. Most of my grays are from that period of time. Well, I also got a kid in there too. So, Yeah. And I'd say the third thing is raising the kid. And we realized we had 4 kids very quickly. It's like, well, somebody needs to raise these things. We can't just keep having them. So we stopped our acquisitions for a while and really focused on creating some processes to keep this stuff going well. And I say that running an apartment complex is like parenting, in a sense that nobody knows what they're doing. But if you give it attention and intention, you can. That's kind of a pastor thing there, Michael, right? I'm doing some rhyming. Didn't start with the same letter. Make a good sermon though. Attention and intention. It seems like you can figure it out, and that's what we wanted to do rather than just keep getting other properties. So we did that, and now we're just kind of reconfiguring, deciding what we're going to do next, what our next accomplishments will be. So, yeah, that's where we are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd like to let's stay a little bit on that thread, George, because obviously your journey into multifamily followed a similar path of most, from getting a taste of more of a recourse type personal single family home, and then working your way up into the larger institutional type properties. You can obviously gain efficiencies in being able to use a property management company and cover those costs, and also just the sheer cash flow that comes versus a single family. But as you just touched on, it gets very complicated very quickly, and from all of it, from finding deals, which you touched on a little bit, and I found this very similar in that once you close on that first deal, you kind of establish your street cred, and brokers. This could have also been a timing thing, just with the way the market was. Exactly. But brokers become a lot more open to reaching out and approaching you with deals proactively versus having to chase them down. And so the deal flow does really amp up, and it can be easy to just get caught up in that and just and I know a lot of people who have done that as well, that you're just about closing deals, and then I'm on a few teams like that where the lead sponsors have all of a sudden they're on to the next shiny object, and the team's kind of left holding the bag on trying to make the business case work and or works through some of the stuff. But I'd like to touch a little bit more on what specifically have you done to help in your time of pause with Andrew to put some systems in place or get things automated such that they can run more smoothly or efficiently or things like that. What are kind of some of the major things that you guys did in terms of was it bringing on team members or just putting more formal structure in place, or some combination of all of that?
Yeah, I like I said, I came from the event space, right? So it's what's interesting is we call them trade shows, and it seems like they're more show than they are anything else. There are a lot of duct tape and baling wire. It's like these companies pay $1 million for just the floor space, much less bringing in the crew and the exhibitry and all the gear, paying for people like me. And then you have 3 days to do everything. So what is that? A lot of times it's not even 24 hours of actual show. And so, something going down for 5 minutes is absolutely unacceptable. And so I guess I was kind of trained in this idea of looking around for stacks of gasoline-soaked rags that could ignite at any moment. It just kind of makes me a little bit pessimistic, I guess. And so that's not good in relationship sides, but it's helped in business. And there's always, it seems like every show, there was always, we just barely made that. This whole thing was going to blow up. Something was going to go wrong, but we got it. Show's over. And that was fine. But I would always go, whatever that problem was, let's not face that again. Let's fix it. So I would like to say that, I came in and read the asset management book. I know there's one or two out there. We did go through those. And then everything was hunky-dory. But there is a lot of learning through mistakes. And so I had a hard time, and I guess maybe it's a little bit of my control nature. I didn't feel like I could completely hand over all the reins until I understood the job. So at first, Andrew and I just were working everything. It was just trying to touch every part of the business so we could understand it. And the minute we got an understanding, then we would hire out. I'd never felt comfortable with VAs on this side yet. And that's I'm not saying that that's not the way to go, but for us, I wanted to have people I trusted more. So we ended up hiring a guy that I worked with with Apple. I worked for him in Apple for years. Phenomenal guy. He retired, and he's kind of like our communications hub now. And he does an incredible job. We ended up hiring another full-time person who helps us with, really, I say his job description is he follows me around and I say, that's a fire, you should put that out. And that's really,
sure. Yeah, nice.
That's how it started. And I told him our goal is to systematize these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've started doing that. We've used a couple tools. I really like ClickUp. I think that's a great proper project management system that is, it's really a build it yourself system. And that's why I liked it. Kind of the engineer nerd in me. It's like I saw all these other ones and they didn't do exactly what I wanted, but with this, I could build it to do the things I wanted. So we keep track of all of our capital expenditures, our improvements, renovations. We keep track of what the property management company is supposed to be doing, and it's a great hub for communication and tracking those things all along every step of the process. So that's probably one of the main tools we use to help us keep track of those things. With AI coming in, we've been using a lot of that to help us keep track of all of our meetings. With summarizing meetings, giving bullet points. Again, our first hire, Don Madsen, he does that. But this just has made his time much more efficient, his work. So we'll see how that stuff kind of plays in a little bit more.
That's great. So a blend of team, IT, and some process focus stuff. Yeah, I can feel you drawing on the IT aspect of things from your background. But great stuff. All right, Michael, been patiently waiting there. Let's kind of go down the same path in terms of specifically as it relates to raising capital to fund deals. Do you lean on any systemizing or IT platforms or a team even to kind of help scale your business in that direction?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I would say, for investor management, I think you guys use Syndication Pro with the deals that you're involved with. Yeah. So I've been on that. I don't know what your experience has been with them. Mine has not been awesome.
It's a little, it's in development, as they say.
Yeah. So maybe that's a fair way to put it. I think we got in early. So while that's exciting, I'm actually transitioning to Juniper Square, which is one that I've used on passive investments that I've made. But that's an industry-leading software. So a little early to comment on our experience with it, but those friends of mine in the industry that use it are very positive with it. And my, everyone talks about systemizing and technology and everything. And my perspective is that's great, but it's efficient for the person using it. It's not always efficient for the people trying to use it, our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to find the balance of where I want to be with that, because I started, the first big raise I did was $5 million, and it's a whole story, but I did not think I had that capacity. And so I did a webinar, and then I had everybody book a 15-minute call with me. Then I would send them the PPM if they wanted it. And so I did the webinar. My calendar filled up. I was making calls nonstop for 3 days, just head down, 12, 14 calls a day. And then I was like, I wasn't keeping track of, how many PPMs I was sending out. I was like, I should probably stop and see where I'm at. And after 3 days, if half the people that I'd already sent PPMs back with whatever amount they said signed them, I would be full. And so it was a very high touch process, but my word, it worked. So then I'm like, well, now once you've done 5 million on a deal, it's like, well, I can do that on every deal. So the next one, different deal, different market, a lot of things different, but I'm thinking, well, it's easy to do 5 million. And so I sent an email out, and it was the first time on Syndication Pro. And so I'm just like, hey, here's the link. Now you have to sign up for this new portal. I didn't say it like this, but the reality is they have to sign up for a new portal. They have to figure that out, walk through the thing, figure out how to sign up through that. And I think I raised a couple $1 million. One thing that I have done, which has been very helpful, is track the different response rates that I get at different stages of my capital raising piece. So, even from my initial email to say, hey, I've got a new deal coming, watch for an announcement on this day at this time. Reply back, or it's like reply back if you want to be added to the webinar. I track how many of those I get. And so I track each stage. So as soon as I sent, this first round, and I could see that my numbers were way down with my new, hands-off, efficient approach, I kind of blew the whistle with my partners. I was like, hey, this is not going to be 5 million. So, that is a huge help, because then we can reshuffle and figure out how to add capacity versus, everybody counting on me till, 4 weeks after, as I'm trying to scrape in the last, $2.5 million. So that's a piece that I think is helpful. If you're going to do this business, track the different pieces so you're not surprised in 2 to 3 weeks when the response isn't there. So anyway, I tried the hands-off approach. It wasn't as effective. So I've gone even. I kind of have a balance right now, and I think of everything from the investor's point of view. I don't. I hear people talk about business, and you're trying to give yourself freedom and all this stuff. And there's some truth to that. And you have to be able to deliver what you tell people you're going to deliver. And there are ways to make it more efficient. But to me, I tasted the freedom and I was like, this is empty. So service is what is fulfilling. And so I want to serve people. So one of the things we do now, and I don't know if we'll always do it, but the last couple of deals, what we've done is after our webinar, we send people to a very simple, hey, this is an interest form on my webpage. They fill that out. I give them some downloadable, executive summary or something, and an ability to book a call to discuss the investment. If people are ready, they can jump straight to filling in their PPM information. And so if you fill out a PPM, and maybe this is too far in the weeds, but I think you wanted to get a little bit, technical. The PPM, you have to put your name in, 10 times. You have to put your address in 4 times. You have to put your social security in 6 times, whatever it is. And that's annoying. So what we do is we ask the investors that one time. They put that in. We get that information. I go in, my team goes into DocuSign, fills that out for them, sends them a DocuSign for their signature.
That's great.
And they're done. So, they review it and sign it, but they don't have to, go through all the monkey business so many times. So it's
confusing.
It's confusing.
It is.
Yeah. It's a big, scary document. It's 130 pages. If you don't fill out one part right, is it going to work? That's what investors are thinking. And so we just simplify it for them. So I've kind of gone the other way, where I'm trying to make it higher touch, but do it in a way that my team can scale with it. So, it's me and my assistant on our deal side. We have a property management company that's kind of separate, but that's how we've found, trying to find the balance between something that can scale and something that serves our people well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it is definitely probably a little more getting into the how-to and the weeds of that, but it tells, it serves a purpose in that, I love the fact that you are finding ways to give value to potential investors, because it is, as you mentioned, even signing up for the platform in many times is overly complicated, and it really, unless you're hand-holding an investor through that process, it's a barrier. And they can just, this is too much or whatever. Same with the PPM documents. Yes, they're very repetitive. Even a lot of times the fields that are being filled out are not quite clear what are you asking for in this spot. And so, yeah, as much as you can pre-populate and do the work, it's already a daunting task to be giving $50,000 or $100,000 to a deal, let alone, am I making a mistake here? Am I putting the right number in? Those kind of things. So that I love that you are finding ways to help simplify the process for the investors and get that value add to them. I'm curious, I'm guessing, George, you did not raise $5 million on your first deal.
No. And let me just say, that was my first big deal.
Your first big deal. Well, yeah, I'm guessing George hasn't raised $5 million for a deal, period.
No, not directly.
We haven't raised $5 million for a deal, but similar. Most people's journey is we tap into our friends and family first, and for most of us, that is a limited pool of wealth to be able to tap into. But I'm curious, Michael, on your side, where are you finding your audience? Are you tapping into a pre-established network that you had either through ministry or just network in other ways, or kind of how are you getting that to begin with?
Sure. So I live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and because we've been in this location and done investing here for over a decade, it's a lot about reputation. Mm-hmm. And when my investing journey went from like 2 units to 50 within a 2-year period, that I used to go to all the investing meetups, and to me, I've got friends that have thousands of units. So my 50 is not impressive to me at that point. But like, I'm going into these meetups and people are like, hey, there's that 50 unit guy, and I was surprised by that, not quite comfortable with it. But then the different groups would start having me speak. So I started to get known in the area. And then when I decided to, change my business model, develop a community, I started a meetup group. And the first meetup month, we had 100 people. The second month, we had 200 people. Wow. And it was, we were putting out really high quality content, not some of the typical meetup stuff where it's flipping, wholesaling, buy my program, in the back of the room kind of stuff. Like we were delivering really, national quality speakers and a great venue. And so then from the meetup, we did our first public, charge tickets for the event. We had 250 people at our local, downtown, very nice venue. So that was almost 5 years ago. And so it was really the platform of our group and the reputation in the area that accelerated that in a major way.
Okay. Yeah. So you had a bit of a reputation and a track record, and then just again giving value, right? So hosting these meetups and giving value rather than asking for the sale, really just building up that network. That's good. That's great. So certain amount of networking certainly is necessary in the capital raising side of things, right? You have to be doing just what you did or similar things. George, talk about acquisitions a bit, right? So there's obviously some networking and some legwork that needs to go in to be able to find and land a deal. How do you guys go about doing that?
Yeah, when you said this is going to be a fight club, and I was like, I got to go against Michael. Holy cow! I feel pretty honored with that. But I thought, you know what? When I was trying to trash talk him last night in our email thread.
By the way, I'm just hanging on till I can go sit on the bucket. Are we going to have is there a bell coming anytime soon?
I was like, well, the secret is I'm going to take a dive. It's like, I want every listener here to get in capital raising. I want everybody to get capital raising.
On my team. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's, I'd say one of the main things, the gurus are helpful, right? I would not be where I am if I had not had somebody else training. Trying to learn all this like I did with single family, the stakes are a lot higher. You make a mistake here, it's not just, well, I just lost my own money. I'm losing other people's money. And so having somebody that's walked it to help you in this, plus it is kind of a closed industry, as you mentioned, until you get into it, until you've got that first one, people are kind of like, who are you? Mm-hmm. And so I think the gurus make it sound like this is you can do this on the side. And that's what I had gotten into this thinking, okay, I'll do my regular work when I traveled all the time. When I come back, after a 10-hour day, I'll sit down at my computer at 6 p.m. and I'll just analyze deals.
Yeah.
I like spreadsheets, and I can read a document on the web, and that's how I'm going to get rich. It's just on my computer with a spreadsheet and a document. And that's really all it takes. And I do see that this attracts a lot of people like that. We get to a lot of people, and, during the first time, what do you hope to do, everybody? Well, I hope to get into acquisitions, and I have a full-time job. And I'm just like, well, good luck on that.
Yeah.
Try not to be negative.
Spreadsheet. I know I can underwrite, and guess what? Right. Everybody can underwrite. Yeah.
Right. And I my first 4 deals I raised, and I try to tell people, raise. You need to understand what you're selling. It's, I look at it as being you're in the car, but you don't have the responsibility of driving, but you can watch, you can see what's happening. And now you can communicate that to your investors. And because if you really don't know what you're selling, and this raising on other people's deals, I think is a great way to get started, even if you want to get into acquisitions. And I hear a lot of times, well, I just can't, I can't raise any money. I'm like, listen, you can't convince Aunt Helen to give you $50,000, but you can convince a broker to sell you a $26 million property. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect right there. It's like, well, I don't have those skills. Well, it's going to have to develop them. And in capital raising, again, with my limited experience in that was a great thing for me to do, because I would get into the conversations and somebody would ask me something, one of the investors, and I'd be like, I don't know. And it was great to call the leads up and say, hey, can you help me out? A lot of times they just give me something to say. They'd give me another document, or they'd say, let's just jump on a call and I can, talk to your investors and answer their questions. And it was great for me to listen along. And that's where I felt like I learned a lot of this, was in that process of watching these experienced operators go through the paces. I didn't realize how many more weeds there were, how many things you had to get into. But on the acquisition side, the getting a place is what everybody focuses on. It really is a ton of work. Everybody says we need to start talking to brokers. And I maybe you guys have heard, one of the experienced people in the group had said, go do this in a place you actually don't want to buy anything.
Yeah.
You're going to burn those bridges. And yeah, there's, Andrew and I started looking in Arkansas first. We drove to every corner of Arkansas, and except the Northwest, which is, we love the Northwest, but every other place, I'm like, I don't think anybody will ever sell us anything in that area before, because I think we just came off as really inexperienced and stupid, but we got our chops up. Right. And so we had to easily underwrite in very detail at least 100 properties, made offers on 10 to maybe 15, and only one did we get it. But I do say, after we, as you mentioned or inferred, once we knew that our batter's box, it's like, man, when this thing comes down, it's like, I'll just let a lot of balls fly by me. Not interested. Here comes one. Bam. Yes. And so we were able to know what we were looking for, and it got simpler after that. So don't know if that answered any of your questions.
No, for sure. I mean, but it is about, I had forgotten about that, but that is great. Like, make your mistakes in a place where it's safe to make your mistakes, right? Get out there, pick brokers' brains. You might get lucky as well. I mean, I know when we landed a deal, it was because of tenacity. Right, we were out there, and brokers were like, "Hey, you guys are serious. We like the way you're underwriting and the way you're coming about this. We're going to make sure you get a deal here. We're going to And so they went to bat for us to try and get deals, and it was purely through networking and hard work and doing some of that, and it's great. But yeah, I mean, in both areas, there really is a fair amount of networking. Familiar saying, I don't know if it's purely to the real estate and syndication space, but it's, people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And so it is about that, whether you're talking to investors or talking to brokers. You got to build up those relationships. And George, you touched on something I did want to talk about as well, is on the acquisition side, especially if you're looking at non-recourse loans, and especially these days, I guess I'm going to go so far as to say it's essential that you find a partner that you can work with that can secure a loan from a lender for a property of that size, right? I mean, you can't just step into the into the playground and walk into a bank and say, "Hey, I found a property. Give me a loan for $10 million or 15 or 20 or $25 million," having never done it before, right? So
Even if your credit score is 800 and up, it's like that
yeah,
right.
I mean, not only do you have to have a track record, I think you also have to have a track record in the market that you're looking to get a loan for a lot of times, and for the property type that you have. So it is essential that you find, a guru or somebody who's going down this road that can get
somebody you can kind of like follow in their wake. And with who we chose to work with, it was great for our first few properties because like we could not have got them done without this guy being a partner. And it was great. And a lot of times we were freaking out on certain things we'd never seen. And he was like, "This is no big deal. Just settle down." And so, that guru partnership was it would have been impossible without that. And they developed these groups, and that's how we, the three of us get to know each other is through these groups. And I think that's what is going beyond that. And I would say that when I got involved with the group, our guru said, very first thing you need to do is just talk to as many people in the group as you can. Yeah. And those relationships seem to be the thing we're going to take away from the group, that's going to be more long lasting than anything. Because it's not just people who's got the net worth, who's got the liquidity, obviously needed, who's got the experience, but it's like, well, who do I trust and who trusts me? Because, this is it's actually harder to get out of one of these deals than it is to get a divorce,
Yeah, so you're in for 2 to 6 years kind of a thing, right? So,
Michael, before we go to round 3, do you mind touching a little bit? What's the criteria that you're looking for when you decide to join a deal and raise capital? What are you looking for in those operators?
Yeah, it's the obvious stuff, for sure. The track record. What's their experience overall in this market with this asset type. But it's also stuff like I take into consider their personal financial situation and their capacity to potentially help if we got into trouble. Character. There's a lot of people that get into this business because of the wealth generating capacity that it has. And that's not necessarily wrong, but I would rather be with people that are others focused and more concerned about the investors involved than how it affects them. Try to get a sense of are they concerned about the other people involved? What if things didn't go according to plan? What would your plan be then? And then obviously you have to know, like, and trust them, but the whole point about it's like a marriage, or even harder to get out of. I mean, I am extremely slow to add new partnerships. It's a massive deal, and maybe it'll come up in round 3. But I don't know that people should start with capital raising if you've never done anything. If there's something to get wrong, if you're going to get wrong with your first couple steps in real estate, my goodness, don't do it in capital raising. That is it's an extremely serious business when you're accepting people's life savings and for a project you think is a good idea. So,
I think that transitions us right into round 3, just to summarize, there's important aspects of both sides of this in terms of the partnership, right? So on the acquisition side, you've got to find somebody that can secure a loan that also, similar things that you just touched on, Michael, has a good character, is not just in it to be making their percentage of the wealth building, but also will support a deal when they get into trouble, because they're all gonna find some form of turbulence throughout the process, right? The business case, in all likelihood. Okay, let's say those deals, 2 years ago, those deals, you could be on autopilot almost. It seems like if you landed a deal, the market appreciation just overwhelmed any and all errors that were made, right? People doubled their money in 12 months or 18 months or whatever it was. And it was almost a bad thing for the industry, because everybody started then focusing on, oh, wow, I can double my money in 2 years. And so people are just kind of jumping into it. But yes, equally as important on the capital raising side, when you shift into using other people's money, shit gets real, to kind of pardon the profanity, but it really, I mean, at least for us, we got into our first few deals with our own money. We made some good decisions. We made some mistakes, but then, yeah, when we started accepting other people's money and trying to bring them into deals, at least for us, it raised our level of concern, because, okay, now if I make a mistake, I can personally justify that, and it's learning and all that kind of stuff. But somebody else's money, then yeah, it becomes a totally different ball game. And so, yeah, let's talk about. I like the way you were going with that, Michael, in terms of why would you not want to do that your first time out? And so I guess the fact that you're putting someone else's funds at risk is certainly a big risk factor. But flipping that around, why do you think capital raising is better than acquisitions? Like, I don't know if you're doing both today or if you're purely capital raising, but where do you see the advantages?
I mean, we do both. We have our own deals, but in our area in Lancaster, there's not a lot of scale. There's not a lot of planned communities. We're pretty old city in the U.S., so a lot of our stuff is just kind of like creep versus a lot of the apartment complexes in the rest of the country. So for me, it's a deal flow to be invited into other people's deals. Yeah, I don't want to go off your script here, but I don't know that that one is better, than another. Is my perspective on it.
Sure.
I love that George wants to touch every aspect of it before he hands it off. I was the same way with the first property. I self-managed the first property I bought. I self-managed and just bought a little house. Wanted to make sure that I liked it before I went all in on it. And then I self-managed up to 50. Then we created a company, and now I'm very hands-off with it. We manage 700 some units, but very in touch with operations. And George is completely right. Buying it is the easy part. Someone has to make it perform. Day two, who's going to be there, making this thing perform? So it is the most critical piece. So maybe I'm not trying to take a dive for George, but
we're both falling down.
This fight is a disaster.
You should fight more aggressive, Michael.
No, let's be real though. I mean, obviously, we're in this to give a flavor for people that might be interested in getting into syndications or larger multifamily units. And so, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do, is uncover the pros and the cons and the good and the bad. And I agree with both of you. We did the same thing. Is I personally have to know end to end what's going on. It doesn't mean I have to specialize in every aspect of it, but I at least need to know, how to do all those things. And especially, I would say, on the capital raising side, if you're then representing a deal to potential investors, you don't need to, but it certainly helps and behooves you to understand and be able to explain the business case and how a process is going to unfold and where the risks are. And to do all of that, you need to have gone through it. And I do like George's approach, and we did a similar thing where it's easier to get into a deal, quite frankly, or at least it was for us, when you're bringing some capital in because we don't have experience at that level. And so, where you can provide value to a team is largely in being able to help raise equity. Certainly, there are other roles along the way in terms of investor communications and giving your inputs and doing
And you
due
have to be
diligence.
legally, you have to have.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you can, but you're not bringing your expertise necessarily when you're first starting out, because you're helping, and there are others who are a lot better versed at some of those elements than you would be. And so,
More
the
like
bigger
an intern in a sense,
What's that?
It's more like an intern. It's like I can
Yeah.
help do things, but
Right.
I'm not the.
Am I bringing the value? Okay, probably not, because it's my first time to go through due diligence, or my first time to run through a closing, or those kind of things. And so, definitely. It certainly helps. I know people who are specializing in certain areas, and they do it very, very well. But for me, and I think for most people, you really need to understand and go through end to end, and be as active as you can on a team when you jump into. One of the things I would like to talk about here in round three, George, you mentioned it early on, is mindset. And some of the things that we like to explore in each of these battles is, what are the key success factors that you guys see in your own disciplines? And maybe, George, you can lead us off, since you touched on it at the beginning of the episode. And where have you sharpened your mindset skills, and how has it helped you? And what would you recommend, coming into multifamily acquisitions?
I mentioned that I got in right as the whole world was shutting down.
Yeah.
And for a while, everything froze. I mean, there was nothing going on. No new deals.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was even touring, right? We were all locked in our homes for a little bit. And then as that continued, there was a part of me, it's like, I have a hard time taking somebody's money and telling them to invest in something when the whole world seems like it's going to burn down any second. And I still fight with that a little bit. It's like, well, what's going on? You see all these things. Well, we just erased the concept of a debt ceiling for a couple of years, and they immediately printed $1 trillion. It's like, well, that's going to have a few ramifications that maybe people aren't expecting. And I remembered it was the end of 2020, and I was just about to get to my first raise. I was feeling like, okay, there will be a tomorrow. and Mark Kinney had said on a call, somebody had asked him, well, with Biden just got elected and they were just going through all these things that they saw as negatives for these type of investments. And Mark said this, and I just thought it was a great quote. He says, I can't tell you the future. He goes, anybody that tells you they know the future based off of anything, he goes, they're lying. They, either ignorant or malevolent, but they don't know. And he says this, he goes, I know that if multifamily investing, for all these factors to go wrong, to ruin these sort of types of investments, he goes, we will have a lot more concerns in our life than what happened to our investment. It's because these things are very evergreen. If your operators paying attention, if they didn't over leverage, I mean, if they bought a good deal, if those things that you do have control of are checked off, and you bought in a good place, or not just one industry. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we do when we choose an area, then choose a submarket, then choose a property. It's like, for the most part, there's going to have to be something macro wrong with the world for these things to take a nosedive. And that kind of freed me up. It's like, yeah, I'm in a good space. I can feel confident of talking to my friends and family about investing in this. Or then when we're operating, it's like, I may not have raised the money, but I think we've got, I don't know, probably close to $30 million of equity that we're managing for other people. So that I'd say that was the first piece. Is it's like, there was like I said, I walked around always looking for things that could go wrong. And so it was very easy in 2020 to find those. They weren't hiding. These whole things are going to go wrong. And so I had to change that just because something could go wrong doesn't mean it doesn't. So do your work, make sure that that's not really going to go up in flames. But then the second thing is, and this really came from Andrew, really helped me. He was a Marine and a missionary. So this guy, he's a phenomenal guy, especially at such a young age. The character he's developed, I really feel fortunate to be partnering with him. It was on our fourth deal, And our fourth deal was we had made commitments. We had signed the PSA with the seller. And one of the things Andrew and I have said is if we said we're going to do something, we're going to do it, even if that means we ourselves lose money. And we've had a number of things that we've done that on, and it's earned us favor with the sellers. And so brokers love us because of that. Because if we say we're going to do something, we're doing it. And so we said we're going to buy this at this price. And this was in summer 2022 when everybody was retrading.
Mm-hmm.
Going, you need to give us a lower price. And when we underwrite so conservatively that even with the difference in lending and the difference leverage, it did not kill our deal. We always, do our underwriting. We look at those returns and are like, well, that's a great deal. So tone that down by about 25% and that's what we'll advertise. So as interest rates climbed, hit our cap rate and all those things, it's like we still rewrote the deal. We're either going to walk away from it and let them keep the earnest money, or we're going to go through with it. And we had people that were a part of our team, vendors that essentially said, this deal is dead. It's not going to work. And I was like, that felt kind of like, the eighth month finding out, you have a miscarriage. It was pretty heartbreaking. Maybe not quite that bad, but it was bad. And I just was like, my head's spinning. We literally had an email, the thread that said, subject line all caps, this deal is dead. And we had that from our lawyer. And we're like, oh, he must know something we don't. And I just remember and Andrew looked at me, he goes, I'm not dead. Because I'm not ready to quit. And I'm like, well, he's like, no, let's fight. Let's fight. Let's fix this thing. And we got a hold of the broker and said, listen, we're not going to retrade, but we do need more time. And I think we got maybe an extra 5 weeks, which was quite a bit of time. And we got this thing closed. And we had to give away almost all of our share in the deal. But we were like, it's more important to us to fulfill what we said than it is for us to just make money. And so we've got this deal and we've been running it since September. And I'm so glad we have it because it's doing well. So yeah, I'd say those are the two. It's the stick to itness, of course. Knowing, I guess you still need to know when to bow out, count your losses, but there was a lot more fight in me than I thought, because of my urging from the partner. And I'd say that having somebody, there is a scripture that says, if one walks alone and he falls, who's there to pick him up? I'm definitely paraphrasing, but you have two. It's like, I've noticed that with Andrew. One time I'll say something that keeps us going to him. And more often than not, I've missed something. He'll catch it and say, hey, how about this? Let's see this aspect. And so we're able to keep each other afloat. It doesn't just rely on one person making sure they're in the right spot. So I'd say those are the three things that have helped us out the most there.
Nice. Yeah. Great partnerships can do wonders, but I love that perspective. Control what you can control and mitigate the rest. I mean, I grew up in my career was all, process improvement, quality focus. So I also walk around with a critical eye looking for areas that can be improved. And I can sympathize with you, but yeah, those are great. And then grit and tenacity to kind of stay in there. So that's good. All right, Michael, how about you? Capital raising, any key success factors or mindset traits that drive success in that versus, people you see not having success?
I think the biggest things for me are one, authenticity. I see people trying to use language and convince other people that they're further along in their process or they're a bigger deal than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wish people would know they don't have to do that. They can just being themselves is a lot better strategy for success than trying to act like you're somewhere you're not. I just feel like people can sniff that out. I can sniff it out. I think most of us can. So that's a big piece of it. And, putting others above yourself, people can tell that, in how you communicate, how you come across, how you treat people, how you, manage deals, how you update investors along the way. It's it's anytime you're thinking too much about yourself or how other people are going to see you or think about you, nervous about how you'll come off, those are all just signs that you're making it about yourself versus, hey, if you're here to serve other people, that just cuts out a lot of the second guessing of, what someone might think or how someone going to treat me. It's almost irrelevant. So those would be a couple.
Well said. Yeah, that's good. How about the flip side of that? What are the downsides of capital raising for somebody that's interested in kind of focusing on that? Where do you see personal pain points or what stresses you out or things like that?
For me, I live based on what I feel God has created me to do. So that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. I am curious, like when people just go into it because it looks like a great business or, it sounds like fun. It's like, holy smokes, you're touching around, you're touching around on people's life savings. Like that is such a serious thing. I've had people who can't sleep at night. They do their first deal and they can't sleep at night knowing that they're responsible for other people's money. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, if you're not concerned at all about accepting other people's money, that is absolutely a sign that please don't come into this business. So it's a serious responsibility, but I actually love it. It's like people are sharing something intimate from their life. Like they've poured their energy out to earn this money. I used to think that wealthy people had money and it was easily come by for them or something. I don't know where I got this mindset. I didn't grow up around rich people, so their world was a mystery. Yeah. And now that I'm here, it's like, holy smokes, we work hard. We make smart decisions. We make sacrifices. We take on huge risk to earn what we have. And so it needs to be treated with great respect. And so then when someone chooses to share that with you, not directly, but in a project that we're doing together, it just creates a different relationship and responsibility and obligation that I have to them. And I love it. I think it's a really amazing way to be in relationship with people, be part of their journey, be part of their family, and their life story. So for me, it's a great fit, but I can't imagine it being a great fit for someone that's just like, oh, that sounds like a great way to make money or an easy way or a fun way.
So there's a gravitas or there's a weightiness that comes with managing other people, or there should be, right? Or otherwise you're partnering with the wrong person if they're Bernie Madoff or whatever, that just kind of carefree with other people's money. So fully feel that as well and have felt it. George, what about you? What's the dark underbelly of acquisitions on the multifamily side?
Yeah. I think one of the main things from what I hear being sold, on social media or from going to a lot of conferences, is this is not a side hustle. This idea that I'm just going to do this while I keep everything else going. Like, as I mentioned, it's taken Andrew and I, both of us, working more than full time to get this done. And I've from the people I've looked at, I've not found a lot who've been able to really successfully acquire a place and run it well while having a W-2. It's just strange because you don't hear a lot of that from the stage, but it's like, well, brokers work bankers' hours typically. It's not a realtor where you can say, hey, can we
property managers and all of that.
Yeah, everybody's working these regular, bankers' hours. And so it's like, my thought that I was going to do this after 6, it's like, or on the weekends. It's not that you can't. I'm not saying that there's, I don't want to be too much of an naysayer, but it definitely is a lot more work than is portrayed. It's a lot more work than just the spreadsheet. It's not the easy part, but it's the simple part, right? Because it's just the factors are right there. Analyze them, get the data, input them, and find out if that's a good deal. But that's not everything about it. And so I would say that that's kind of the main thing I see is this is a much bigger. This is a job for me. I'm
time, right? It's time consuming, and also within a specific window of time being working hours where you can network with people and make calls and do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And we've been on podcasts where they're all about passive income and such. And it's like, well, I don't know what that is yet.
It doesn't exist. I mean, right. There's more passive than others, but yeah.
Yeah. But for me, this is work. I'm working this job and it's fulfilling. And I know there's a future there and we're helping other people get passive income. But, this takes a lot of work, even as we hand off some of the tasks that we've kind of figured out, repetitive tasks, what needs to happen. We still have to manage it. You still have to make sure those people are doing it. We're not doing the leases. We have to manage the property managers. And so there's quite a bit of work that continues even after you've acquired the place. So.
Right on. Okay. Makes sense. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna call round 3 here, and it was insightful and inspiring, and you guys both have great stories and really represented, I would say, pretty fully each of those disciplines.
And you were really nice to each other.
Very, very, very kind.
It's not enough.
It's hard to dog each other too much. We're all in it, but So on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast, we believe there are no losers. However, rules are rules, and we do.
There are no losers, but
one of you is going to lose.
That's right.
Anyway. All right. So Lidge and I have conferred. We've tallied the score, reviewed the stats, and due to the time commitment, a little bit of stress factor, and just the simplicity of the specific discipline, we've announced Michael as the winner of this matchup in capital raising. So congratulations to Michael.
Congratulations.
Right on.
Right on, guys. So really appreciate it. As they say in the fight business, as well as in real business, it's a team sport. And so, because of that, we always like to give you guys a little bit of time just to give a shout out to somebody who's made a difference along your journey, express a little bit of gratitude. Michael, we'll start with you. Any particular?
Yeah, two guys come to mind. Mark Kinney, who's been a mentor to all of us, and Dave Zook is another one. Just been a good friend for a lot of years and has inspired me probably more than anybody else I know.
Cool. George, how about you?
Well, I've mentioned his name, but my business partner, Andrew Moore, we don't live in the same city, but we're on Zoom all the time. And, my wife is locked in through a contract to have to put up with me.
Yes.
and he is signed up in a sense as well. And so he's definitely helped, I've mentioned, see things differently, help keep me going. But he's also, we're developing a friendship as well as we've shared, life's ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So that was unexpected when I came into this. So I'm ultra appreciative of that.
You want to close this out?
Sure. Michael and George, thank you so much for coming on the show and share your insights, your wonderful mindset tips. And if people want to reach out to you and be part of what you do, where can they find you? George, let's start with you.
Sure. Our company, Andrew's and my company, is called Ardent with a T Equity Group. And so our website is ardentequitygroup.com. That was the longest domain available. So that's why we chose.
Well, I don't know. We have one too. So yeah.
And so our
email addresses are not fun to say.
No. Yeah. So it's george@ardentequitygroup.com, or you can go to our website, contact me through there. So
great. How about you, Michael?
Yeah. I have Facebook, Instagram with my name, or our company, Elevate Investing Group. The website is investelevate.com. Email Michael at investelevate.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. And for those of you tuning in, thank you so much for investing your time with us on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast. We had a blast, learned something, and hope you did too. If you did have fun, please subscribe to the show, get more great matchups and championship insights from the world of business and investing. Lidge and I truly believe the beauty of cash flow is having your money fight for you instead of you having to fight for your money. So whether it's one of these methods or something else, we encourage you to dream big and take action. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
For those of you tuning in, we thank you so much for investing your time with us on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast. We certainly had a blast, received some knockout insights, all while learning something new. And we hope you did too.
If you had fun, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watch or listen.
Lydia and I truly believe the beauty of cash flow is having your money fight for you instead of you having to fight for money. So whether it's one of these methods or something else, we encourage you to dream big and take action. See you next time.